When Roy Williamson wrote Flower of Scotland in the mid-60s, he could never have known the impact it would have some 30 years later as the Scottish rugby team was poised to win the Grand Slam. As the crowd roared the song which had become Scotland's unofficial national anthem, they knew very little about its composer, a man whose life outside music was as private as the world of the Corries was public.
My father was reclusive. I don't know if he would have been had he not had a career really with so many public around him. Dad was great in a crowd. He could entertain, he could be the life and soul of the party, but the real inner man was very difficult for anybody to find.
Roy Williamson was born in Edinburgh in 1936, the second son of a well-to-do family. His father was an advocate who died when Roy was 8. His relationship with his mother, a former concert pianist, was distant.
He had a very difficult childhood, my father. He was very restricted in many ways. Having asthma as a child prevented him from doing a lot of things that normal children would initially. And his mother tended to look down on him because he had asthma. In her own particular way, she was caring, she did the best by him, but she was rather Victorian in her attitudes. Through the difficulties with his mother and the early loss of his father died when both boys were very young, and the mother too was away a lot at the time, so both Robert and Roy were brought up really by aunts, uncles, teachers at various schools, any other relatives. It was difficult childhood. I think it made both brothers very close to each other, and they relied on each other right through the whole of their lives.
When he was a young boy, he was very outgoing, I would say. Different from me, I was rather solemn. And if we got up to any mischief, I think it was usually he who suggested it, although maybe I was content to go along with it. And between us, I dare say, we managed to stay out of too much difficulty. In the summer, for example, we would go up to Garten, where we had a house in the summertime. And I can remember once getting into some kind of a row because we were dropping fir cones on the heads of people who were on their way to the church, which was next door. We'd climbed a tree and we were just dropping fir cones. And I would rather suspect it was his idea, although we both did it. We sailed model yachts, sort of small yachts and then bigger ones. The sort of toys children are given to start with. But then later, sort of serious models, and we joined the Model Yacht Club down at Inverleith and sailed marble. We each had a Marblehead yacht. And I can remember taking out lots of books from the library about sailing. Square-rigged ships in particular. I think we must have read all of Eric Lubbock's books, both of us. But he took a greater interest, and of course he drew them. He was drawing them all the time. People say that the life at Gordonstoun in those days were tough and hard and Spartan, and that's the sort of reputation the school had, and we wore short trousers and it was sometimes cold and we slept in large dormitories and the windows were open all night. And we got up and went for runs in the morning and had cold showers and these sort of things. But I don't think we found it like that. I think we found it was all right, quite reasonable and no problems. He was good at sports and was active in that. I don't think he shone academically. I don't think he was top of the class. I can't remember. I don't think we thought that was very important, any of us. He was popular. He played rugby and hockey. And of course, seamanship. There was always seamanship at Gordonstoun. So again, there are some of the boats. And that was one. Everybody did some seamanship. Once a week, you go out on the cutters, the dipping load cutters. And then later, of course, after he left school, or was it during one of the school holidays? I can't remember. He spent a time at the Outward Bound School at Berghead, where they had larger boats.
From Gordonstoun, Roy went to Edinburgh Art College, where he studied drawing and painting. There he met Violet Thompson, whom he later married in 1958. But college did more than simply further Roy's artistic talents. He developed an interest in music, encouraged by an architecture student, Bill Smith.
Well, Roy and I knew each other from the college days, the Edinburgh College of Art. I was there from 53 to 59. Roy started about 54. And he had an interest in music, a wide interest in music at that time. We went off to buy his guitar, I remember in 56. And from then on, Roy and I met each other regularly throughout college years. And sang together as well, of course.
Our first Edinburgh Festival was at the Tryst, which is a coffee house in High Street. And we did 4 half-hour shows a night. And we got paid £15 for the whole group for the whole 3 weeks. But we thought, my goodness, we're getting paid. We felt sort of quite famous. But what really started us off was the television series, because we all had jobs. Bill was an architect, Roy and Ronnie were artists, art teachers in fact, and I worked in the National Trust. So when we got the series of 26 weeks, that was very steady work. So we just all gave up our jobs and became professional.
Oh, gypsies came to our Lord's gate, and all but they sang sweetly. They sang sae sweet and sae complete, that doon came our fair lady. When she came tripping down the stair, we all her maids afore her, as soon as they saw her real fond face, they cast their glory on her.
When we started, I was aware of people like the Clancy brothers and Tommy Macomb, the Dubliners, the Spinners, who all came to Edinburgh quite often for concerts and even for parties. They would come socially. And everybody seemed to converge on Roy's flat. They all seemed to stay there, and Vi fed them. And when Roy would come in, sometimes there'd be hundreds of people sort of, sleeping off hangovers and everything, and on the floor and all over the flat. It was a great place.
I remember the parties, being put to bed with my sister, and then my sister waking me up and saying there's a party on, let's go through. And, sort of in the middle of the night we'd go through, and there would be rooms filled with candles and food and be wine and music, fiddlers and people singing, women I'd never seen before, this constant stream of entertainers, really, musicians, very strange, yeah. And they would find us very strange, these two golden-haired children in their dressing gowns, padding about in the middle of a party. Yeah, it was nice.
Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. Let the grasses grow and the waters flow in a free and easy way, but give me enough of the fine old stuff that's made in Galway Bay. Let fishermen all from Donegal, the Sligo and Ditherham too, we'll give them a slip and we'll take a little sip of the rare old mountain dew. Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. At the foot of the hill there's a neat little cell where the smoke curls up to the sky. By the smoke and the smell you can clearly tell there's punching brewing nearby. It fills the air with an odour rare, and betwixt both me and you, as home you stroll, you can take a bowl or a bucket of the Mountain Dew. Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. Hi-diddly-ay-lum, diddly-doodle-ay-lum, diddly-doo-day-diddly-day-day. Now learned men who use the men have wrote your praises high. That sweet cheap from Ireland green, distilled from wheat and rye. Throw away your pill, little cure all ill, be pagan Christian or Jew. Take off your coat and graze your throat with a bucket of the mountain dew. Hi diddly dum diddly doo, lady dum diddly doo, die diddly die day. Hi diddly dum diddly doo, lady dum diddly doo, die diddly die day. Hi diddly dum diddly doo, lady dum diddly doo, die diddly die day. Hi diddly dum diddly doo, lady dum diddly doo, die diddly die day.
We worked very closely together as a group. Musically, we were very in tune. We had our differences, of course, and being on the road was a great stress. It was a great strain. The particular strain, I think, related to the fact that families and young children were growing up in Edinburgh, and we were on tour for 3 and 4 weeks at a time.
Rapid fame took its toll on Roy's family life as well as the Corrie folk trio. He and Violet separated. Violet left Edinburgh with their younger daughter Sheena, while Karen was sent to boarding school. Around the same time, Roy and Ronnie were branching out as a duo.
I remember the first night was at the Royal Jubilee Arms Hotel in Corrie, up in Glenprosen, because Bill Smith, the original member of the trio, had failed to turn up, and Roy and I decided we'd go up and do it on our own. But it was a bit hair-raising because I played only the muthi in these days, and Roy had the guitar and his bandurria, and Pat, my wife, she came with us just to give us a bit of support. But by the time she had encouraged us all the way up there to do it, by the time the performance came along, she was shattered and had to go to the bar. She couldn't face it. But it was quite amusing because she overheard 2 of the old ladies who came down from the audience into the bar for a drink, said, "Oh my God, that Hall and McGregor are wonderful." So they didn't even know who we were. But that was followed actually, but a month was clear between then and doing our first actual official engagement. Someone had said, "Right, okay, come along, let us see what you can do." And I decided I was going to learn to play the guitar in a month. And I got down and I got the strum going, etc., etc. And on the night, it was in Ely, a wee folk club in Ely. And I stood there and we started at 8 o'clock. And Roy said afterwards that I changed chord at 10:30.
I was away from Edinburgh for a bobby, and then I got the penny back to buy tobacco way. And for you, and for you, and for you, Johnny lad, I'll dance the buckles off the shin for you, my Johnny lad.
Now Samson was a mighty man and fed on fish and chips. He'd buckle round the Gala gate just picking up the nips.
And for you, and for you, and for you, Johnny lad, I'll dance the buckles off the shin for you, my Johnny lad. Now Solomon and David led very wicked lives, wouldn't should have been evening with other people's wives. And for you, and for you, and for you, Johnny lad, I'll dance the buckles off the shin for you, my Johnny lad. On the Royal Tour at Leslie, you should have seen the Queen playing at the pinball with the lads on Leslie Green. And for you, and for you, and for you, Johnny lad, I'll dance the buckle off the shoe for you, my Johnny lad.
The Duke was in the parlour eating bread and honey. The Queen was in the treasury friending Scotland's money.
And for you, and for you, and for you, Johnny lad, I'll dance the buckle off the shoe for you, my Johnny lad.
We were in Sandy Bells, myself and my brother Eddie, and we'd come over to do a tour, a 12-day tour of the folk clubs. And the word had got around that this piper, young Irish piper, had come over to Edinburgh, and there was a great sort of commotion among all the folkies. And Roy and Ronnie arrived in, and of course we were pointed out who they were because they were the biggest thing in Edinburgh at the time, you know, in the folk scene. And they were shuffling up to see what sort of competition they were up against with these 2 kids, you see, that had come over. And Roy said, you play the pipes? I said, "Yeah, I do, yeah." He said, "Do you play the whistle?" I said, "Oh, very little." And I'd won the All-Ireland on the tin whistle, you know, and I didn't say anything about it. So we all winking at each other, all trying to, you know, shuffle each other off. Anyway, he says, "Would you play us a tune on that wee whistle there?" You know, and I picked up the whistle and I played very bad, you know, this thing called the Harvest Horn, which was terrible bad now, and I was winking at Eddie, and he sort of could see the smile, you know, the eyes brightening up, and he looked at Ronnie, you know, "We have him here," you know. And he took the whistle off me and he played a bit of a hornpipe. I think it was the Boys of the Blue Hill. And I played it not bad now, you know. And I said, could I look at that whistle again? He said, certainly. Then I played the thing called A Bunch of Keys, which has 5 parts in it. And my brother Eddie picked up the 12-string guitar and he said, you bastard. And that was my first introduction to Roy.
I am a roving journeyman, I rove from town to town, and whenever I get the job of work I'm willing to sit down. My kit's all on my shoulder and my grafted tool in hand. Around the country I will go, a roving journeyman. And when I come to Glasgow town, the lasses jump for joy. Says one and two the t'other, well, here comes a roving boy. So treat me to a bottle and the others to a dram. The toast goes round the table, health to the journeyman. I hadn't been to Glasgow town a week but barely 3 before the provost daughter went and fell in love with me. She asked me for to dine with her and took me by the hand. She proudly told her mother that she loved the journeyman. Ach, away you go, you silly maid, I'll hear you speak no more. How can you love a journeyman you never seen before? Mother sweet, I do entreat to love him all I can. Around the country I will go, a roving journeyman. Oh, you lintonaddy toodle-addy, lintonaddy toodle, lintonaddy toodle, lintonaddy yay. Pots and pans and helping hands will see you through the day. Lintonaddy toodle-oodle-oodle-addy yay. Hey, a penny to the journeyman to help him on his way. You'll need me mare to trudge your foot, you'll hay a horse and pair. My wealth with thee in poverty contented I will share. So overflow the flowing bowl and drain it if you can. Toast the provost daughter and the roving journeyman. I am a roving journeyman, I rove from town to town. Whenever I get a job of work I'm willing to sit down. My kit's all on my shoulder and my grafting tool in hand. Around the country I will go, a roving journeyman.
Beyond the Corries, Roy had other talents. He made many of the instruments they played on stage, like the cumbalins, combining mandolin and guitar. His love of the sea was as strong as ever, as he showed in his paintings, while in 1978 he started one of his most ambitious projects, building the Sheena Margaret.
The Sheena Margaret was one of Dad's dreams come true. His great love of the sea, his love of the boats, his childhood on the fishing boats or even on the sailboat at Gordonston, had all been lacking in one thing, and he was desperate to own his own boat. He started sailing out on friends' boats, but he was glad to be given the opportunity, but he called them the plastic boats. You see, they weren't the real thing. He wanted an old-fashioned wooden boat, and there wasn't many to be had, so he designed his own. It's a old Zulu type 40-footer, and Dad was there from the very beginning. I think he got the last big chunk of Scottish oak.
I launched the boat, and I remember practicing. I was about 14. I remember practicing for about a fortnight on various bottles for to make sure that I wasn't going to be like these ladies, you know, in nice suits who would take a swing at the boat and it would miss. I definitely wanted it to be spectacular and impact. Of course, on the day when I did launch the boat, the thing just dissolved. I mean, the thing just went like powder over the whole crowd of people. It was really quite dangerous, actually.
When I've done my work of day and I row my boat away down the water of Loch Tay, as the evening light is fading, and I look upon Ben Lyons, where the after glory glows, and I think on two bright eyes and a melting mouth below. She's my beauteous neon room, my joy and sorrow too, and although she is untrue, well, I cannot live without her, for my heart's a boat in tow, and I'd give the world to know why she means to let me go as I sing
father loved the sea and he loved boats, really because it gave him the peace and the freedom that he could be himself. He could suppress emotions with other people, but out fighting a battle with a gale or huge waves, or survival depending on your skill with the steering of the boat or the ropes or the tacking, that was when he really felt he could be himself.
The sea eventually drew Roy away from Edinburgh, and he and his second wife Nicky moved to the wind-blown northeast of Scotland. But in 1989 he was diagnosed as having a brain tumour and needed major surgery.
We were told that he would have 2 years after the operation. We were told it had been a success. And he left the hospital after 3 days. I mean, it takes me 3 days to recover from a dentist, you know. 3 days after having brain surgery. My concern about, you know, the risks with surgery, I remember going to see him probably, you know, on the 5th day. I went to see him at home, and he picked up a guitar and said everything's really fine, and was feeling really on top of the world, you know, because the operation had been a success. And he said, "Oh, I'll play you a song. I've been practicing this, and it's really sounding good." And just the feeling of sick dread, you know, in case he couldn't play it. And he couldn't. And his fingers were all over the place. And then he looked at me and he smiled.
We had a tree planted at Gordonston. My sister's idea, really, and I thought it was a wonderful idea. He was very fond of weeping birch. He had one in his garden in Forres. And so the weeping birch was planted with some of Dad's ashes underneath, and a verse from the prophet, which is a famous verse. And then Dad's dates underneath. And it's there in the peace and quiet and the security of the grounds that he knows so well.
I think Roy was probably one of the, if not, I think the finest folk musician I'd ever met. He could play everything. I mean, for a man to sit down and play a set of Northumbrian pipes and play a flute and write music on both, and then sit down and play a guitar like I never heard in my life before. Roy was probably one of the greatest guitar players I ever heard. And not just one tuning on a guitar, but he could tune a guitar to 3 or 4 different ways. And then take up a thing like the bandurria, you know, and take up a mandolin and play it just as equally as good. I mean, as an all-round folk musician, as a, you know, on strings or wind instruments. And then to sit down and write something like Flower of Scotland, you know. I mean, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, you know, that he was the greatest folk musician I ever heard out of Scotland.
I think there's a few things about my father that were clearly him, and one is that he was missed when he left the room by even people who didn't particularly like him. He was missed. He took something away when he would leave the room. There would be like a vacuum somehow.
Not a day goes by that I don't think about him. And I sat down and just wrote this little piece for Roy. Teardrops come to greet my eyes. I'm happy now, they've realised. Your love of Scotland immortalised. Oh, what a flower you left behind. My lovely Celt, so proud and true. I remember days just me and you. We'd meet and drink in Sandy Bells and laugh at stories we would tell. And the night you wrote the song as well. What a flower you left behind. Though you've gone, dear friend, you're still with me, and in Scotland's heart eternally. There's no goodbyes between good friends. The curtain's down, but you still remain. and time can't change the gift you gave, nor the flower you left behind.
O flower of Scotland, will we see your likes again, that fought and died for your wee hill and glen, and stood against him? Proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward, they think again. The hills are bare now, autumn leaves lie vacant still, o'er land that's been lost now, which those so dearly held had stood against him. Proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward, they think again. O flower of Scotland, will we see your likes again, that fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen, and stood against him? Proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward,